one topic, two guests, two perspectives, one show that gets to the point with the biggest names in business, media, entertainment, and technology. Welcome to The Point with me, Jon Steinberg. Welcome to The Point. On this episode, we're talking about comedy. The business of laughs is bigger than ever, with Netflix making comedy specials a massive part of their $8 billion a year investment in original content. Comics such as Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, and Amy Schumer got between $10 and $20 million per special from the streaming giant. So-called second-tier comedians can get anywhere from $3 to $10 million. Meanwhile, the current political landscape is providing more comedic material than ever. President Trump was the subject of 1,060 late-night jokes in his first 100 days, beating out each of the four previous presidents for the same period. I sat down with two comedians, one from the world of stand-up, one from the world of late night, to talk about all the new ways you can build a career or destroy it.
If you're a young comedian, you can be seen by anybody from their desk at home. So the gatekeepers have shifted.
Everybody's worried. And every time somebody has a special coming out, they have that one joke, they're like, oh, that's the joke I'm gonna get in trouble for.
From apprentice to president, I love Trump.
It's incredible, right? Makes you want to blow your brains out. It's so mind-boggling.
Jordan Klepper joined The Daily Show as a correspondent in 2014. 3 years later, he got his own show on Comedy Central. The Opposition with Jordan Klepper satirizes right-wing politics. Its tagline is, not mainstream, not establishment, not helping.
I am a character saying the opposite of what I truly believe. I only believe what I can see with my own eyes and touch with my own no problem down there size pants.
I like that idea with exercise now. Of like, we're all in this together. It's like, no, we're not, Kelsey.
Stand-up comedian Rachel Feinstein is one of the many talents getting a boost from Netflix. This past March, the streaming platform released a second season of The Stand-Ups, a half dozen 30-minute episodes showcasing stand-up performers. Episode 4 belongs to Feinstein. When did you realize you wanted to be in comedy?
I guess I did, I like to do impressions of my friends and teachers and stuff when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I had a vague idea that I would do something like that.
As a kid, I thought I wanted to be an archaeologist because of Indiana Jones.
Okay.
And then I quickly realized, oh, I think I want to be the actor who's pretending to be an archaeologist. Because I was like, maybe I'll be a paleontologist because of Jurassic Park. And you quickly realize, oh, I think I like the performative element within this.
I moved to New York with this guy in his band called Dick Sister, okay?
Okay.
Because I'm worth it.
Yeah.
So I got here and with Dick Sister, and then Dick Sister dumped me. They didn't want me or hanging around. I was like the Yoko Ono.
Yoko Ono, yeah, okay, that's what I was going to say. Okay, so you moved to New York with a gentleman and his band.
A gentleman,
Well, he
yes.
clearly wasn't a gentleman, that's the
No.
irony. With some dude and his band.
Yes.
Okay, and what happens next?
He dumps me.
Okay.
Hard dump, didn't see it coming. I think I was like eating a bagel in the kitchen, and I
Yeah.
was enjoying the bagel. Usually you can feel a dumping, like a soup collecting, but I was just enjoying this bagel, and then he just kind of came in like, I don't think it's gonna work. But that got me to New York. So you know how sometimes the dumbest things you could ever do will get you on the correct path? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
I
the
do.
dumbest things will lead to the finest things. Yeah, so thank God.
And then it just kind of rolled from there?
Somebody else was like, oh, you know, you can do this show where you bring 3 people to perform and you have to have 3 paying guests. So I did a lot of those bringer shows and barking. So I'd be out on the street passing out flyers asking people to come to this or that show. And yeah.
I jumped into college not knowing what I wanted to do with my life and found improvisational comedy right off the bat, and it was something that was new, curious, and strange. I was a math major, but realized I was much better at making stuff up on the spot than working through theorems. But I didn't actually see a path to be a comedian at that time.
But it seemed like your path was relatively straightforward, right? Like you went to all of the best improv schools or whatever you call them, or troops or whatever. I guess you didn't go on Saturday Night Live, but you did the sort of Comedy Central equivalent of being the correspondent, right?
Yeah.
Was there a moment, so you didn't have like the traditional, like, I'm going to give it up moment, right?
Well, I would say, like, what is interesting about like a career in comedy, and probably why I didn't consider it until post-college, is because there isn't really a traditional path. As somebody who was a math major, liked order, and didn't know what the future held, like, when I heard about There's a place called the Second City. A lot of these other famous comedians who have found success, who I find funny, they went through here. They actually teach classes. You can take a class, you can meet a community, and there is a path. Through that curiosity, it led me to Chicago, which is sort of the home of improv comedy, where I studied at the Second City, the Improv Olympic, tried to make my living teaching, doing improv, doing sketch comedy, writing, which took me to New York, where I went to the Upright Citizens Brigade, continued that, started getting little writing jobs, acting jobs, and what have you. Fast forward to getting a job on The Daily Show. Fast forward a couple years after that to getting my own show.
What comedians have influenced you the most?
Well, when I was really little, I remember seeing Tracy Ullman on TV doing voices, and I loved her. I just thought she was so funny. And then Elaine on Seinfeld. So that's like when I was a little kid. And then I love Chris Rock. I love Chappelle. And my friends, like, you know, my best friends are like my favorite people that make me laugh the most, you know, like Nikki Glaser and Bridget Everett and Amy Schumer and Marina Franklin. So, yeah.
What comedians have influenced you most?
Monty Python was a group that I loved the play, and I loved the way in which they approached sketch comedy. I think that I got really lucky to work with Jon Stewart as somebody who I looked up to for years, both for like his intellect and what he was able to do with The Daily Show. I pull a lot from the way in which he ran his room and ran the show, The Daily Show. And the same thing with Trevor. I got to watch him learn how to be a boss so quickly in this environment.
What's your process for coming up with jokes?
As far as jokes for the show, it's find the news of the day, get the feel of what people are talking about, and what we say is like get your earnest perspective on a story, and then immediately find what we call the oppo take. And so find the hypocrisy, find the thing that you're furious about, or the thing that you're ecstatic about, and from that, like, attack it and brainstorm. I pitch out ideas. I then am in a room with other people that we yes and we use like the tools that we've created with, and then it becomes more of a stand-up mentality. Where
tell the audience tell the viewers what yes and is.
Yes and is like the bedrock of improv, which is somebody states a statement, you say yes to it, and the and part is you build off of it. And so
as opposed to
no but is what they would say, which is just as a listening technique. It's like improv is all about you have to create something out of nothing, and so you have to withhold judgment so you can create quickly.
How do you come up with your jokes?
I just take things that happen to me and tell stories about them. I impersonate people in my family and my life and relationships, and so I just, mock and alienate my loved ones.
Up next, from open mic nights to YouTube channels, how the internet has changed the way you break into comedy. Welcome back to The Point. Stand-up comedian Rachel Feinstein and Comedy Central's Jordan Klepper each took two different paths into their careers, but a lot has changed since they got started. There are more opportunities, more ways to get discovered, and more ways to get in trouble.
It's different in so many ways, but you still have to do some of the same things. People have to do those bringer shows or the open mics, or there's still a rancid period that you can't really erase, but you have to go through it, you know? And I think it's a little safer now. When I was starting on the road, it was like I was staying in insane places, and they'll send like any sex offender to pick up the comedian. Like they don't care at all.
Has the way that people come up in the business now because of online changed? Have there been more people that have broken out through either online sketch or things like that, or is the grind of stand-up shows still the thing that makes it happen or not happen for you?
Well, I mean, if you're not a stand-up, like you're not gonna. I mean, plenty of people make it through without doing stand-up in comedic acting, so it doesn't have to be stand-up. Like I don't think Julia Louis-Dreyfus was ever a stand-up, or I don't know if Tracy Ullman was. I don't think she was.
But a lot of stand-ups go on to be in sitcoms and shows and movies and things like that.
But
But now, is there a way for people to become? Do you see a lot more comedians who become comedic actors? You know, either skipping the stand-up stage or choosing not to do that, whereas in a prior era, that was the way to do it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that it used to be people used it as a means to an end more. You know, I don't think of it that way. Like, I want to always do stand-up no matter what I do as well, you know?
How's the industry changed?
Well, as far as like, from when I started improv 15 plus years ago, the only way you are seen is to become a part of an institution like the Second City, spend years to get onto a stage where then hopefully somebody from New York like Lorne Michaels comes in, sees you do a thing, and brings you out. Now, the internet has changed all of that in a way that, like, if you're a young comedian, you can be seen by anybody from their desk at home. So the gatekeepers have shifted.
But for the young comedians, is the grind of either doing the improv shows or stand-up still essential? Or do you see some now that kind of either come on your show that just do online and then bypass that traditional route?
For me, it's still a training ground and a way to, like, hone your craft. Like, it was incredibly helpful to get those reps, to have an audience continue. Like, with improvisation, you know right away if what you're doing is working or if it is not working. Is the best training ground you can have for that. If you're just doing online stuff, you have to be pretty far along right off the bat. But I am starting to see people who that's their first step, and the improv thing is just almost practice for them. And so I think that, like, if you just jump into the improv world, that by all means is still a path, but you have to find a way to be savvy in another way in which you can sell yourself if you want to find, like, sustainability in that industry.
So when you saw all the retirement and the changes happening at Comedy Central, when you saw late night and even more flux, did you say to yourself, like, this is great, things are going to change fast, new possibilities are going to open up?
When I got The Daily Show, I felt an immediate sense of comfort to actually have something that felt somewhat regular.
A job.
I think, like, yeah, exactly. I think up until that point, I was getting writing jobs, and that's catch as catch can. 3 months here, 6 months here. You book a thing here, you write a pilot they pick up, and it doesn't go. And so there's constant change and chaos. And so the late night world, what was surprising to me was there was actual stasis for a while.
Yes.
But then as that changed, as Jon moved on and Trevor came in, like, this idea of this is going to just be one thing for 8 years. At that point, Sam B, Jason Jones were like offices next to mine. It was like, oh, they'd been here for such a long time. This is an institution that you'll just be here for 8 years. For me, I was always so happy and loved working at The Daily Show. But as all those things shifted, like, I became inspired by everybody else's quest to continue to find other projects they could do. So which as a comedian you have to do. You always have 4 things you're working on. It was surprising for me to not have that for like a year and a half before like my first year at The Daily Show.
In any industry, big opportunities come with big risks, and comedy is no different. Coming up, we'll talk about the ever-shifting line between what's funny and what goes too far. Welcome back to The Point. Plenty of comedians have lost their careers by taking a joke one step too far. I asked my guests how big a role political correctness plays in their comedy. Do you worry about offending people and in today's world? Because comedians it seems like they used to worry less.
I mean, I think you have to, as a comedian, you have to take ownership of the things you say and the point of view that you have. People who are new to our show, you know, I am a character who is saying the opposite of what I truly believe.
Yes.
For me, that's always been the most fun way to approach comedy, and that's satire, Second City. It's like, let me show, not tell. Let me play the follies of society. Let me be the big dummy that we're laughing at, as opposed to just pointing out the big dummy. I'll be the big dummy. When I start that and do that with a new audience who maybe hasn't seen the show or is new to the show, there is a chill because I will say the thing that is the opposite of what they believe. And so I think when there's pushback for that comedian who crosses a line, like, I think that can be a conversation. I think a comedian should be pushing the line. They can step over it. I think they should own when they do that. And so if they get criticism, great, let that be a conversation. I think it's irresponsible to just think that, like, I'm a comedian, I can do whatever, I don't bear any responsibility. You do. You're a public persona, you put something out there, and people are sensitive to that reaction. We should be able to push boundaries, but we should be able to own the things we say.
What does political correctness mean to you?
Nothing. I think it's foolishness. I don't believe in it.
Well, but there is, I mean, but people say...
I'm not saying you don't have to be sensitive about what you say, but to me that's not the same as political correctness.
Well, what is the difference? Because, like, you know, like Trump will say that things are politically correct, and he doesn't do that, which is really an excuse for him to be insensitive. So what's the difference between being sensitive of others and being politically correct?
I guess when you say the words politically correct, to me it just it seems like it denotes that you're trying to say something in a way that's somehow, like, palatable, even if it's, you know, there's not a good spirit behind it.
Yeah.
Whereas, of course, you have to be sensitive. Of course, you can't say certain things in different environments. Like, I'm aware that I can't talk in the one way that when I'm sitting around talking smack with my friends and walk into a fancy wedding or something.
What does political correctness mean to you?
I mean, I think it just means awareness. It's a term that's now been utilized to attack and to criticize.
Yeah.
For me, it just means like have awareness of the things that you say, and so it shouldn't be something we're overly critical of from the right. I see that. I'm like, you're upset that that person is thinking about hurting somebody else's feelings or being cautious with the things that the way in which they project the world. I think the world could use more people who think about the things they say before they say it.
Is there any commentary or comment that you find offensive in
I think you
humor?
can joke about anything, but it's like you can feel it. You know, I'm sure when me and my comic friends and like we say unspeakable things to each other all day long, but there's love behind it. So you can kind of tell the tone. I'm sure like you've had somebody say something to you, you know, maybe it's like something anti-Semitic, and you can just feel like there's not the right feeling behind it, you know. And then other people will just make jokes and they don't offend you.
It's almost like, is it harder to be free, or do people get in trouble more?
It's insane now. You can't.
We'll talk about that a bit.
Well, it's every one of my specials that I've done. I'll get like emails after, but they've gotten worse and worse. One time it was one email telling me that I made a joke about peanut allergies and her son has peanut allergies, and I was like, how about people make jokes about the Holocaust, and why is that okay but not peanut allergies, and isn't that just a way we all cope with anything painful, is just to mock it and laugh at it? And she wasn't budging. And I babysat kids with peanut allergies, and I mean them no harm.
So then where's the line? But you've seen other comedians where, you know, one wrong step and your sort of career is over. Certainly for non-comedians, one wrong step and your career is over. Every time I tweet something, I think to myself, like, could somebody possibly misinterpret this thing, right? And if I think if it even occurs to me that maybe they could, then I just don't do it, right?
Right.
But I'm in a different seat than you are. You're in a seat where you kind of have to be edgy, because what is comedy if it doesn't have a certain edge to it, right? So how do you even move your mouth at a certain point if you're you know?
Every comic that I'm talking to at the Comedy Cellar or wherever, when we sit around and talk about whatever thing we just put out, everybody's worried. And every time somebody has a special coming out, they have that one joke, they're like, oh, that's the joke I'm going to get in trouble for. And you don't even really feel excited for the special. You just have that one joke in your head. You're like, they're going to think I meant this or that.
Our political climate, our social climate has people yearning for very earnest commentary. And a lot of times with comedians, I talk with my other stand-up friends, they feel like the audiences are shifting in a way that like they want to be told how to feel or reinforce how to feel, as opposed to be surprised or feel like their buttons are pushed, which is tough as a comedian, because you're like, I don't come in this to just be an activist to get claps. I also want to elicit laughter, and I want to push a boundary.
Coming up, what it means to be successful in comedy today, and is there enough to go around? Welcome back to The Point. There are more career opportunities for comedians than ever before. But does that mean the competition is more cutthroat? Not really. Here's what my guest had to say. What does mentorship look like in comedy? Is it different for men and women?
Well, from my experience with mentorship, like the improv community, it is very communal, and so I lucked out in that there were people who had been through that, and my mentorship came from like, I got to be a part of the shows that they did. I got to both watch them perform and build off of the things they did, and that was really good for me, both as a comedian and as a human being. I think comedy is full of dudes and has been for a while. I think like we'd like some of these gatekeepers to open up and make it much more diverse, and I think like so it is harder to find, I'm sure for a woman's experience, to find mentorship with another woman who's been down that road. There aren't as many examples because it's been such a boys club for so long, and so I think like whatever the industry can do to continue to open that up, you got to have more diversity out there to reflect the points of view of this world.
Do women mentor each other in comedy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, all my work I get is through my friends and my girlfriends especially.
Okay.
So that's how I get all my work. So people always ask, like, is comedy, stand-up comedy, cutthroat? And I'm like, not at all. Like, you know, of course not everybody's like, you know, completely lovely and wonderful, but we all help each other. Like all my work's through my friends. So they put us in each other's shows, and it's not even because we're all such kind people. It's just like we want to hang out.
Yeah.
We just want to keep hanging out. So it's more fun to work with your friends.
What does the pinnacle of success look like now for a comedian? It seems to me, I'll just state an opinion, that it's having a show like you do on a major network or a major cable network, and a Netflix special. I mean, that seems to me like that's you know, that's per se. Is that right?
For the comedians in my world, you have your own personal things that you watched when you were young and you wanted to be a part of.
Yeah.
I think it's always been, can you make a living doing what you want to do, and can you have something that is yours that you have creative control over? That used to be like, oh, the only sustainable comedy jobs that you can get into for like an improviser or a writer, it's like you could get on SNL or you could be a correspondent on The Daily Show.
Right.
It was like, oh, there's like 12 positions.
Yes.
That is shifted now. It's like, oh, you can get stand-up now. They're more special, so there's more ability to create that. Now people are finding content elsewhere, and so I think you can go to those institutions. They're still there, and they're things I think a lot of young comedians are still aiming for. But now it's just, where is there a place where I can get enough scratch to create something that is my own?
What do you think about all of these Netflix streaming shows? It seems like every day I go on there, there's another streaming series for a comedian I've never heard of. How big of an opportunity is that, do you think?
It's big. It's where you want to have your special now, for sure.
Yeah, why? Why not HBO?
I wish that I could take back my last Comedy Central special and put it on Netflix.
Well, I
then
love
people
that.
will
That's
see
so
it.
controversial. Why? Why? Tell me about that.
Because people
no young
watch
people want
Netflix.
to.
People don't watch television the way they used to when we were, you know, they don't watch in that elder way where everybody sits down together at 8 p.m. on Friday. So you don't have to, when you promote your special, like my special's already out. It was out a few days ago, but I can do this and promote it because it's just sitting there and when anybody feels like doing it.
Would you take less money to do something for Netflix than for somebody else?
Yeah, it depends on what the thing is, but yes, I would. I mean, Netflix, you're still going to make good money doing any television thing, but yes, you make a lot of your money on the road. Where you don't make money is in your spots in the city. New York is so competitive, so when we're working in the city, we're not working for the money. We're just working out and hanging out with each other.
Yeah.
No comic can make a living by just doing a couple spots at the clubs around the city. You make more money on the road and on television.
Whether you make your comedy living on the road, on TV, in a writer's room, or on a stage, the point is that your sense of humor has to evolve with the world around you. That can be pushing boundaries or playing it safe. But like any good joke, timing is everything. Join us next week on The Point for more great conversation.